Before we get into this episode, I would like to pre-warn you that the following story contains subject matter that some people may find distressing. Listener discretion is advised. I don't understand how he can say, I don't know anything about any tapes, when there's a letter clearly there that's for him saying he's sending
with
tapes
your
back.
signature.
With his signature on it, yes.
Right.
Hello, and welcome back to 1 Minute Remaining. My name is Jack Lawrence, the host and creator of this show. Today is part 4, the story of Dwight Bergeron, a man serving 3 life sentences for the sexual abuse of his 3 small children. A crime that he has so far served over 3 decades for in Louisiana State Prison.
Jerome Dwight Bergeron.
Incarcerated individual at
the Louisiana State Penitentiary.
This call is not private. It will be recorded and may be monitored.
You may start the conversation now.
Hey, Jack.
Here he is. How are you, Dwight?
Almost at the end of this cold I've been having.
Oh, you got a cold.
Oh, I had one.
What some people call man flu.
Yeah, I can believe it. But I get it, though. Shit, I grab that weed eater. I take me some of them cold tablets in the morning. I go out there and grab that weed eater, so I'm sweating my ass off, and I'm gonna kick it out of me.
That's the way to do it, mate. Just get out there, sweat it out.
Oh, that's what I do. I'm in the sun all day.
So do you still? I know you did bodybuilding as a youngster. Do you still work out a fair bit in the weight pit?
No, I used to, but I kind of the left shoulder cracked the road cup, and I'm stupid. I was young. Our bloodline, we're gifted just with brutal strength. That's one thing we inherited from my grandpa, and we like to show it off, and I did. And we had a big kill on the back of the track. I mean, this thing's like 400 or 500 pounds, and they were trying to work on it. They kept getting aggravated, this and that. I was like, watch out. And my stupid ass, I grabbed one side of this son of a gun, and I heard it. I heard it when it popped, when it cracked. And I tore that shoulder out, and I was playing football up here. And my dumb ass, I jumped up in the air. I grabbed the dude, and when by my body flying in the air like that, he took that arm and went completely behind me and tore the shoulder out again.
Ow.
Well, I waited about 4 weeks. I'm like, I'm good, let's roll. So I'm making an ass out of these big old boys because I grew up playing football. So anyway, I got out there and I did it again. This time, here, a big youngster come running around, and when I grabbed him, he swung my legs in the air. Another dude hit me in the legs, and it took that shoulder and ripped it completely out. I kind of messed it all up. And then I laid in, I was bench pressing, and stupid again because my max was 325, but they had 445 on the bench. Well, my arms are short, so I was like, I just want to get it out of the rack. I got it out of the rack, and I went to see it in spots. And I'm like, uh-oh. And they're like, go Bergeron, go. But I'm like, But it was too late to come down. When it come down, I was like, oh, God. And they all hollering, go Bergeron. I'm like, I know I can't do this, but I can't let my air out because it's gonna smash me. So finally, I was picking up one side to get the waist to fall off the other side. When I did, finally, I couldn't hold my air anymore. I said, get it off. When I did that, it broke my ribs on the side.
Oh, my Lord.
I said, that's it. Yeah. I was like, I'm getting too old for this shit, though.
Yeah.
But when I come up here, though, I was a brute.
Well, I suppose you kind of, that was kind of helpful because, as you said to me, you had to do a fair bit of fighting when you arrived.
Oh, yeah.
So for anyone convicted of a crime, such as the one Dwight has been convicted of, prison is most certainly not a welcoming environment. Other prisoners take an extremely dim view of these types of offenders, and they can often be preyed upon. Something that I would suggest no one's about to lose any sleep over. However, of course, Dwight and his children, who were said to be his victims, say that he is innocent of this crime. However, that's of little interest to those in prison. When they learn of your charges, they're not about to come up and ask about your case and if you're innocent or guilty. They speak with actions, not words. And not only this, but Dwight is also a white man who is incarcerated in Louisiana, where the African American population inside prisons far outweighs the whites. And it's seen Dwight have to defend himself many times over the last 3 decades.
When I got up here on what's called the main prison side, you had like 86, 87, 89 guys to a dorm. You might have had 5 whites. It was all, So the most you might have seen in the dorm was 7 whites, and that's the way the ratio was. So they're going to try you. The way they'll try you is first they're going to feel you out. They're going to like, okay. The thing was, you don't allow nobody to walk through your aisle. They can walk around. Well, I didn't know this. And they would come through my aisle. And an old timer called me on the yard. He said, man, look, man, so I know you just got here, but let me help you what's going on. He said, right now they're filling you out. See if you're going to say something. I said, what you mean? He said, they're walking through your aisle. He said, no man walks through your aisle, bro. I'm like, okay. So I was sitting in the dorm. That was one of my first fights. And then dude come through the aisle, and I hollered up, got up. I said, hey, man, this ain't no highway, bro. Be walking through my aisle, and dude said, who you addressing? I said, anybody wants to entertain it. He said, fucking white boy, this and that. So boom, 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 we went to fight. And I got locked up. And then after that, I got to the blocks. And I had a few more fights in the cell blocks. And from the cell blocks, I made the dormitory. The dormitory had another fight in the dormitory. In the dormitory, I went to what they call back to the cell block. I got in another fight in the cell block. Big old dude, he laid there and told about, lucky white boy, you ain't got no sugar on your tray. I told him I want sugar, because he gave me the tray. And I said, white boy. He said, you heard what I said? I said, all right. So when the cell opened, I went out there to fight him. That big son of a gun, he dropped me twice. He was hitting hard. But he's like, God, don't, boy, you don't want to go out. And he dropped me to my knees, and I shake my head so I can see. Because there was just one of him, but I'm seeing 5 or 6 of them. If I get my eyes back, I can see straight. I get up. By him being as big as he was, I can't go toe-to-toe with him. So I bum rushed him to get him off his feet. He didn't move. He hit me with that sledgehammer head he got and bounced my head like concrete. Third time I got up, I'm like, God, don't. I'm like, the hell with this shit. I have my Bergeron boots on. I kicked him in the knee, and when they bent down to favor that knee, I come straight up in the nuts. Bam! And I'm like, hell yeah. And that's when the security come and got us. But he come back years later, and he saw me. He said, I got to give it to you, white boy. He got hard. I said, I'm about to tell you what. I said, I ain't never been hit by a man so hard in my life. You hit hard.
In our previous episode, we looked at where the allegations first originated from and looked at the notes that were done by the counsellor who was seeing the boys, of which we'll look more at soon. However, although the allegations seem to stem from Chris and Shane's household and the Bayous, it would eventually be their older sister, 6-year-old Becky, that would become the state's key witness. So the question is, at what point does she tell her adoptive parents or anyone about the abuse? Now, of course, I've said on many occasions that Dwight's children have all recanted many times over the years. And you might be wondering at this stage, well, are we going to hear from them? And at this point, the answer to that question is no. As you can probably imagine, the last 30 years have been extremely tough, not just for Dwight, but also for his children. Not only were they adopted out into separate families, but of course, they testified against their father for crimes they say that he didn't do. The guilt and anguish over the years has certainly taken its toll. And to speak about this again at this stage is too much for them. Now, in saying that, we can hear from Rebecca from an interview that she did a number of years ago talking about these allegations and where they came from.
The woman, from what I understand, I remember her specifically pushing the issue. I had never said anything of the sort that had happened, anything like that, and my adoptive parents can vouch for me on that as well. Because through the years, I had asked, like, did I ever tell y'all anything before this even occurred? They said no, So, and then Chris's adoptive parents that wanted to adopt him or whatever, they're the ones who came up with the story, his adoptive mother. She worked in social services. She knew the ropes, and like I said, we were very poor. My dad was very uneducated. My mother was young, So I guess they felt that they had more power and that this would stick. The coercing began, and they're the ones who came up with the charges, came up with the whole ordeal of the molestation and all these crazy sexual things that supposedly happened, which never did.
The first time we see allegations from Becky in relation to these alleged crimes is, in fact, when she's taken to the police station to give her statement. Now, what I find interesting about this is who goes with her. Here's Jeanette, Dwight's partner.
I think out of all the sessions Becky attended, her adopted parents may have taken her to 2, maybe 3 of them. The rest of the time, Renee would pick her up and take her for those meetings. You know, Jackie, you have kids. Would you let somebody else take your kids to go be interviewed by a cop?
Oh, absolutely not in a million years, no.
So why would you do that?
Again, amongst all the paperwork I've been provided, I've also been given the police paperwork from the day that the children gave their statements to police. And where Becky is about to give her statement, it states the following. The following information was received from Rebecca, age 6, at 1:11 p.m. on July 10th, 1992, in the presence of Detective Jamel Guidry and Mrs. Renee Bayou. Here's Professor Laurie Shanks again.
Nothing was done appropriately. No independent person interviewed these children. It was clear that the children were interviewed, with the adoptive parents being present.
And the one who started it all, the woman who started it all, who adopted the boys, she took the girl who was with another adoptive family. She was the one who took her to the police to make the report, not the ones who adopted her.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And she sat in the room with the
she
sat in the room with the police officers as this girl gave her testimony about Dad raping her.
And it's horrible. It's just horrible.
Okay, so we've heard now multiple times that what was done in this situation was incorrect. But what is the right way? Laurie Shanks explains.
So what needs to happen is that when the child first says anything that's ambiguous or not, you need to take the child to someone who has no knowledge of what's going on with this family at all, someone who is completely objective and trained in how to interview a child. You then have to test the child to see whether she can relate something to you. How old is she? 5-year-old children typically do not understand concepts like before and after. So do you have kids?
I do. I've got a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Okay, so with your 5-year-old, is it a boy or a girl?
Boy.
Okay, so your 5-year-old boy probably knows his colors, right?
Yep.
He knows his numbers.
Yep.
He might be able to count up to 100.
Mm-hmm.
And he probably knows his birthday. Why? Because you tell him, what do we do on your birthday? Oh, we have cake, we have ice cream. But if you say to your 5-year-old child, what comes next, your birthday or Christmas? Your 5-year-old child will not know the answer.
No, I wouldn't have a
question.
clue. No.
And if you say, and then what happens next? Is it, what's your other child? Is it a boy or a girl?
Girl.
Okay, so you say, what comes next? Your birthday or Iva's birthday? Your son will likely, he may take a guess.
Yeah, no, he would not. I guarantee he wouldn't know. Yeah, he would have no idea.
They don't have that concept of time, which is why in preschools, if your kids are in preschools, they will have morning time and they'll say, oh, today is Sunday. What was yesterday? Yesterday was Saturday. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's going to be Monday. And, after they're in, first or second grade, they get that concept. But for someone to get up on the stand, and I've seen this all the time, did this happen in the summer? Did it happen, when you were 7? They have no clue. And so that's the first thing that the counselor needs to determine is, can they tell a story? And typically what I do, I'll do this, I lecture to, 300 or 400 lawyers at a time, and I'll have a kid up there and I will have talked to their parent beforehand, and have them describe something that we know what the facts are. So, like, where did you take your son on vacation last year. So can your son tell me a story? Can he relate in a way that is factually accurate what happened on your vacation? You know, something having nothing to do with sex, having nothing to do with anybody being bad or good. Just can he relay a story that's factually correct? So only after a determination is made that a child is able to give that kind of information do you start then to find out what it is they're telling about something that was wrong. So then you need to have, and this should all be on videotape, so that you can make sure that the person who's interviewing is eliciting from the child what happened as opposed to the interviewer making the assumptions.
And herein lies the next red flag. Welcome to Tapegate, jury members. As Laurie mentions, any interviews that are done with children should be taped to ensure that the interviews are done properly, that the children aren't being led, they're not being fed any information, and it's all coming naturally. So were tapes done in this particular case? Well, the short answer is yes. So after the initial report is made, Shane and Chris are taken to meet with a man by the name of Ron Normand, who is a child protection investigator. Two little boys, just 5 and 3 years of age, are brought into a small office in Avoyelles Parish, Louisiana. Ron Normand sits them down. The boys talk, and the entire conversation is tape recorded. We know this as fact because of an internal memo that I have from the Office of Community Services that is written by Mr. Ron Normand, and it states the following, in part. Received a request for courtesy investigation with interviews of the children Christopher 5, Shane 3, and Becky 6. Emphasis to be placed on all information on possible sexual abuse of the children. Interviewed Chris and Shane Bayou, and in brackets, audio taped. All information and tape sent to Terrebonne Parish. Now, just while we're on parishes, so we don't get confused, because we've got Terrebonne Parish and Lafourche Parish we talk about. So a parish in Louisiana is basically equivalent to a county in other US states. I then have a separate letter that again Ron Normand wrote and sent to Chief Detective Bob Venables, which states, in part, the Form 42C attached is a summarization of an interview with Christopher and Shane conducted by our office on 6/17/92 between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. The statements contain allegations of sexual abuse of all of the children in this home prior to November 1991. We are, therefore, notifying you of these alleged illegal activities. Also, the audio tape of the interview conducted by our office has been sent to the Terrebonne Parish Office of Community Services. Terrebonne Sheriff's officials can review that tape with the worker Miss Wendy McCall in the parish's Child Protection Office. Now we're going to jump ahead here because Dwight says that his defense attorney, of course, requested all discovery from the prosecution at the time of the trial. However, there were never any tapes that were produced. Did your attorney, do you know whether or not he specifically asked for any tape recordings, or did he just ask for all of discovery?
No, he specifically asked for tapes for audio, video. I remember that day well. He asked if there's any tapes, audio or video, and this returner's reply with the answer back on the paperwork he gave back was no to the tapes, no to the audio. That was the DA's answer. So we had no reason to pursue that, all them years.
So how did Dwight even come to know that these tapes even existed in the first place? Well, fast forwarding yet again to after the trial, Dwight being found guilty and spending some time in prison, when his uncle Mark comes to him with some information.
My uncle Mark was a deacon of a church, and the cop that was his best friend came to my uncle and told him, he said, I need to talk to you. And they met at Memorial Day and told Mark, he said, I'm going to tell you who and why we did what we did, who ordered us to do it. So He said, there's things you don't know about. He said, for one, there's some tapes. He said, if you get these tapes, he said, this whole thing will get turned around. He said, you're going to hear what they're telling them kids what to say on them tapes.
So with this newfound information about these apparent tapes, Dwight goes back to court, filing a post-conviction relief under ineffective assistance of counsel, where one of the main arguments is the tapes. Where are they? And why were we never given them?
We filed according to what the detective was telling my uncle. We filed to get the tapes. So the hearing on the tapes came up, we go to court on that. My lawyer, who later on was a judge, became a judge. He said that in court. Him and the DA is going back and forth. We put him on the stand. We asked him, did you know about all these records? He's like, no. He said none of that was in the DA file. So then the DA comes and said, wait a minute. I always give you an open discovery. He said, so you going to tell me right now I didn't allow you to go into the file? He said, I'm not saying that. He said, what I'm saying is I did not see all of that with the tapes. He said, I didn't see that in the file. He said, and in fact, he explains. He said, in fact, we asked for that on the script. We didn't have to.
So after Dwight's original attorney is on the stand talking about the tapes, it was then the district attorney's turn to take the stand.
After it was all said and done, we put the DA on the stand. He come out and said, well, there wasn't no tapes. I'm telling you right now that I never had no tapes. I never saw no tapes.
That was even followed up by a written statement, which states in part the following. Dear Mr. Bergeron, enclosed, please find an answer to your application for post-conviction relief I have filed. Sincerely, Camille A. Morvat, Assistant District Attorney. In reference to tape statements or videos of the children, this prosecutor testified that the state had no taped statements or videos in its file, nor were any tape statements or videos ever provided to the prosecutor through the investigation. Mr. Norman's notes indicated that a copy of the tape statements was sent to the Office of Community Services in Terrebonne Parish and in the La Fourche Parish. This was never provided to this prosecutor, nor did he have any of this in the state's file. Nor has this prosecutor ever seen the tapes, nor heard the tapes. What's even stranger about that is I have another letter, dated this time April 4th of 1995, just a few years after this case had been finalised and Dwight was already incarcerated. It's addressed to Detective Jamel Gaudry in the La Fourche Parish Sheriff's Office. It says, Dear Detective Gaudry, the enclosed cassette tapes were never introduced into evidence at the trial of the above captioned case. Therefore, I am returning them to your office. With kindest regards, sincerely, Camille A. Morvat, Assistant District Attorney. So the question is, did they have the tapes or didn't they? Do the tapes exist or don't they? And where are the tapes? I don't understand how he can say, I don't know anything about any tapes when there's a letter clearly there that's for him saying he's sending
with
tapes
your
back.
signature.
With his signature on it, yes.
Right.
Saying I'm sending these tape backs and we didn't use them in the trial.
We put Joe Bergeron on the stand. She said, I never had no tapes. I don't know about no tapes. He said, well, you see that letter? We read it to the court. She said, yeah. She said, but I never got them. I never saw them. I don't know what y'all talking about. I never had no tapes.
Well, and then the DA said that, the tapes that he was talking about was something entirely different.
That letter where he's sending the tapes back that didn't get used, he's saying that those were different tapes.
Right, because it says in there that he gave the tapes back to Detective Jamel Gaudry, is what she said. And then he said that, well, the tapes that he gave back to her, they were for something else. So
apparently, according to the district attorney, those tapes had nothing to do with this case. However, if you do read the letter, which I'll post in the Facebook group so everyone can see it, in the RE section, it states, State of Louisiana versus number 246595, Jerome Bergeron and Angela Bergeron, case number 702292. But again, according to the district attorney, these tapes had nothing to do with that case. So, excuse me. Sorry, I'm allergic to bullshit.
I will tell you this. As we sat in the lawyer's office the other day and Chris was talking, he started talking about the sitting at the table while people were asking him questions and him saying stuff. And he said, they had one of those tape recorders. He said, but it was the old kind. You know, you press the button and then you press the button to play and you press the button to stop. And he said that's what they kept doing. He said, I remember them, like, we would say something and they would press the button and say, you can't say that, or you can't say it like that. They would tell them how to say it and then go back and record it, press the button.
The sad fact of this reality is that if these people are all saying these tapes don't exist, then essentially they don't exist. Whether it sounds ridiculous or not, there's really not much else you can do. And let's not forget that at the time of the trial, they didn't even know about the tapes in the first place. So if I can just go back a bit prior to you going to trial, what was the defense that your counsel, your attorney was putting together for you? Was there sort of a defense strategy?
Not really. I remember when he asked for the money for an expert, and the judge says, well, give me a reason why. He just puts his hands up in the air and he says, Your Honor, I've never done a case like this. I don't even know what I'm doing. So.
Deary me. What did he want money for, sorry?
An expert.
An expert for?
Because the state had an expert come in, to testify.
But what was the expert in relation to?
Dealing with the medical reports.
Okay, so an expert medical person.
Right.
And then the judge went, why do you want one? And he said, I don't know.
Exactly. He said, Your Honor, I don't even know what to ask. He said, I've never done nothing like this. I don't even know what to I don't know what to do. I don't know, Your Honor. The judge said, well, I'm not going to just give you a blank check until you give me a reason.
So I have, in fact, got these trial transcripts of the defense attorney asking the court for help financially so that they could get an expert to help combat the prosecution's expert. And this is part of that conversation. Dwight's attorney, Mr. LeBlanc. In this case, there are physicians' evaluations of these children. We have no reports of any physiological evaluations, but we do know that there are physicians' evaluations. As an attorney, I have no specific knowledge of what's involved in how the physicians made their findings. We would like funds to allow us to contact and interview and possibly subpoena and call a physician in response. Judge. Well, what do these physicians' reports say? The physician reports indicate that there was abuse. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't recall ever seeing a physician reporting that there was abuse. Usually they report their physical findings. LeBlanc. The physician's findings indicate that there are medical conditions which are consistent with sexual abuse, Your Honor. Okay. And I feel like I need assistance and consultation with another physician in order to help me prepare cross-examination, or, in fact, assistance in helping in our defense. I mean, this is a very technical field that we're talking about, child abuse. Oh, wait, stop. What is so complicated? Suppose the physician gets up and says, the hymen was torn. I mean, you hardly need an expert physician to think of a question. Is it possible, doctor, that this could have happened by some method other than abuse? And the doctor will say, well, yes, it sometimes happens without abuse. I mean, it doesn't seem to me you haven't shown me that there are any really complex issues that will be presented by a physician. Well, there's another issue involved where there's no physical signs and the doctor is still saying that there is sexual abuse or could possibly be sexual abuse. Mr. Morvant, you want to be heard on this issue? If you don't mind, Judge, just briefly. Judge, we had these 3 children examined by Dr. Catherine Kaufman, who is a pediatrician with Children's Hospital in New Orleans that specializes in examining suspected sexual abuse to children. We're going to bring her to the court live for trial. She has issued 4 reports in reference to the 4 children. In 2 of the children, her physical findings are normal. And in the other 2 children, it is what she refers to as inconclusive. In fact, I can tell you, Dr. Kaufman's going to testify that even if she had found evidence of a torn hymen or a laceration of the anus, she could not have said what was the cause of that. She could say it would be consistent with the history that the children gave her, but she cannot make a statement as to the physical findings because that's going to be an ultimate issue of fact for the jury to decide. So I would disagree with the defense counsel that they need an expert to come in because Dr. Kaufman can bring all of the literature that the court would like to look at. And in the findings nationally, close to 80% of children who were examined, that is later validated that they were sexually abused, get normal examinations. So the physical examination in and of itself is not going to necessarily be that crucial to the presentation of this case. Well, Mr. LeBlanc, again, it doesn't sound like that's a terribly complicated area. Is there some physician or some expert out there that you are aware of who can punch holes in this witness testimony? Well, Your Honour, I don't have anyone specifically right now lined up and in the wings ready to come in. Basically, what I was attempting to do was have the funds available in case I could find someone. I'm going to deny the motion. There has to be a showing of need. That it may be nice, it may be helpful, there may be some witness out there who can somehow assist the defence is not enough. Accordingly, the motion to authorise the payment of funds for a defence expert is denied. Here's defence attorney Michael Leonard. I find that aspects of it seems so lopsided because it's like the prosecution could do what they want, get who they need, and put them all up there, and then the defence comes and say, well, look, hey, we need some money because we need some experts as well. And they're like, well, tell us why and what a good reason is. I feel like that's so unfair.
Yeah, the resources are absolutely skewed in favor of the prosecution. There's no doubt about it. So the way that works is very different whether your case is in federal court or if it's in state court. So in state court, that's what you just described is going to happen on a regular basis where you're going to be denied your request to get an expert unless you make some extraordinary showing, which makes no sense. You know, it's supposed to be an equal system. You're supposed to get a fair trial. To say that the government, all those experts and all the resources, that all comes out of public funds. And to say that if you're on the defense side, if you're a defendant represented by a public defender, you shouldn't have the same right and access to have a fair trial and to get experts and all that is really crazy. But that's how it works in practice. It's much more difficult to get a state court judge to approve the funds. And the funds are coming from, earmarked money. So there might not even be money there for you to get an expert appointed. And a lot of judges will take the position, well, you can cross the state's expert. You can make your points through cross-examination, which is ridiculous, right? There's a huge difference between a jury seeing one expert and then the defense expert who's giving, a different conclusion or opinion, battle of the experts, which is much more effective than just saying, hey, make your points on cross, counsel. Yeah, you're fine, which is really a difficult situation for anyone to be in.
You have 1 minute remaining.
And that's all we have time for. But coming up, we'll look at the notes made by the physician for this case. Or should I say, the notes made by the physicians. Yes, there was more than one, because the prosecution switched out their physician just before trial.
Before that, we had a hearing, and what happened was the DA said, Your Honor, I'm not going to lose L.J. Bayou. He said, Your Honor, we ain't going to use him. We got another expert that's going to come.
And as Dwight prepares for trial, his children are seemingly also being prepared.
The child has very clearly expressed that he does not wish to testify, and it is not the job of a counselor to encourage a child to say something which may not have been true.
Next time on 1 Minute Remaining. 1 Minute Remaining is a Mashed Pumpkin production, created, hosted and produced by Jack Lawrence, with thanks to special guest producer Alyssa Cook. Audio and sound design by Jack Lawrence and Dom Evans of Earsay.